Okay, so it is 11. I want to go ahead and kick us off. I think we still have some more people who are going to join us, but I want to keep us on time. I'm Janet Parker. I'm with Innovate Mississippi, and I'm just so excited to have you all here on this conference call today. We all came together and wanted to come up with some content that would be really useful for startups and entrepreneurs, given the circumstances that we're in right now. I think you're going to learn a lot today from Jonathan. Just for those of you who are not familiar with Innovate Mississippi, just a little bit about us. So we work with early stage technology and innovation based entrepreneurs. We help them get to market. We help them with connections to resources that they need to start and grow their businesses. If you'll notice on the screen, I wanted to direct you to the intake form on our website. If you are an entrepreneur and we can help you in any way, please contact us. You can go to our website, innovate.ms. There's a drop-down menu for services for entrepreneurs. There's an intake form you can fill out, or you can call or contact Tasha Bibb, who's our Director of Entrepreneur Development. You can see her email address there on the screen. Also, we're a nonprofit, so we do rely on supporters, financial support from sponsors. If you're interested in getting involved with Innovate, please contact me. My email address is also on the screen. I'd like to introduce you to Jonathan. Jonathan Sellers is CEO and founder of Spark Outbound. Jonathan's also a supporter of Innovate Mississippi, which we really appreciate. He supports innovation throughout the state of Mississippi. He is based in Tampa, but Jonathan grew up in Mississippi from Wayne County. He still has family here and ties here, so he's very involved with Mississippi and Mississippi businesses. Jonathan is going to talk to us today about strategies, sales strategies, outbound sales that will help you guys take your businesses to the next level. If any of you came to our conference last fall, Accelerate, you may have heard Jonathan speak at the conference. He's got a presentation that's packed full of information, so I hope you're ready to take a lot of notes. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to you, Jonathan, and I'm going to sign off on my video and let you take it from here.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Janet. And, first of all, I just want to say a big thank you to Janet, Tony, Tasha, everybody at the Innovate team. I think right now, like Janet just mentioned, it's it is a challenging time. It's a strange time. So like they're constantly looking for ways to provide value and provide expertise, just anything they can do to help the entrepreneurs in the Mississippi innovation ecosystem. And so I'm definitely happy to be here today. I see that we're still having people logging in over the last couple minutes. So what I want to do just to get started, while we're letting people log in, anybody else that's going to join, is if anybody, I'd really like to see like where are people logging in from, like what city or town are you coming from? So there's a chat function. You should be able to chat, and I'm gonna send one right now. And so if everybody will just just drop a note to say where they're logging in from, I think that'll be cool to see while we're just waiting on everybody to log in over the next couple minutes. Oh, there's Todd, my home office. Bellhaven. Cool. Couple people from Ridgeland, Oxford. Okay. Cool. Madison. Tupelo. Okay. Columbia. People all over the place. Yeah, very cool. All right, so Ocean Springs, got somebody from the coast. All right, cool. Awesome. Yeah, so everybody be interested to see that as people continue to log in. Hopefully everybody will join in there. See Vicksburg there. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into these first couple slides, and I think everybody will be logged in. And then by the time we really get to the information here, so yeah, the purpose of this event is really just talking about outbound. So if you're, B2B, you're looking to sell to businesses specifically, what do you do right now? And like, how do you do, what should you be doing uh, as far as sales goes? And immediately what we're going to talk about is, maybe some of those options. And um, it, we talk to a lot of businesses, or I talk to a lot of businesses. I've probably, in the last 2 months, yeah, so like February, March, I've probably talked to either on, on phone and a video call or via email, probably like 150, 200 different businesses around the country. And so people have a lot of different thoughts on what they should be doing right now. And so um, we have the fortune of working with a lot of different businesses and a lot of industries. And so we've seen, that there's a lot of success to be had out there right now. So when I was talking to Janet, I thought that it might be good to just kind of go over like some of that. Like, so, how do, you know, either we approach things for our clients, or how do our clients, just from what they've shared with us, how are they approaching things right now? And what does that look like? And how have they, found success working through this crazy time? So, I am Jonathan, Spark Outbound. We just a quick overview of what we do. So we do lead gen services for B2B businesses, and also we work with franchise brands. And so we do that with either outreach, so email, or occasionally social media outreach. And then also we do digital advertising and SEO. So that's just a really quick overview of kind of who we are and, why we have this information. But I want to go ahead now and jump right on into, really the options that businesses as a whole have essentially kind of put themselves into one of these four buckets right now. Uh, like I said, from those conversations I've been having, typically everybody fits in one of these mindsets right now. So they're either saying we've stopped marketing, so we've put the brakes on, and that could be caused by they could be servicing a market that is, for instance, if you're servicing restaurants, if that's the market you service, then a lot of businesses in that situation had to stop because all their clients had to stop, and they're in a crazy time right now, trying to just figure out how they're going to survive and what's the new normal going to be. So but other businesses that aren't in that situation where it's necessarily they had to do it, they just decided right now we're putting the brakes on everything, we don't know what's going to happen, we're stopping for sure. The next mindset is the wait and see. And so I call this the pause. They're putting a pause on things. I can't tell you how many times I've heard somebody say that in the last 2 months. And so basically it's not really stopping. They're not shutting it down. They probably still are doing some marketing efforts. They're putting a pause on anything new is what that typically has meant. And so the wait and see mentality, um, we'll get into this, but I would say the number one challenge with that is, how long are we going to wait? What does that mean, wait and see? The wait period could be indefinite if you enter that mode, and so it's risky to go that route. Number three is the maintain group. And so what that really means is it's maybe a shift of focus. And so they're just trying to keep their revenue where it is, keep their clients, happy, or maybe they've already been working on business development. They have people in the process. They're just trying to like push things through, and just stay status quo, avoid layoffs and things like that. And then number four is the grow mindset. I have, just as almost as many people as who says they're going to put things on pause, have said they see a huge opportunity right now for themselves, and they're looking to grow. How can they do things to put themselves in position to grow, take advantage of maybe businesses that are their competitors that are in mindset one or two right now, and maybe they're waiting and seeing, well, I'm going to go during this time and take advantage of that. And so with the business philosophy set, so the business is operating in one of those four mindsets, then that leaves the sales team or business development team with a few options. And so obviously if we're in number 1 or 2, it's probably stop selling. And so what are you doing if you stop selling? So 2, 3, 4, especially 2 could be an option for organizations that have stopped selling, is to now take this time to go back almost to more of a marketing approach and start developing, refining messaging, assessing, maybe, doing surveys of, existing clients and things like this. But just really, while you're not being active, you're taking action to prepare for the future to be able to come out strong. So we have had a couple larger brands actually that took that approach, that they wanted to really refine messaging, develop new messaging. A big thing right now, just in general, with a lot of the brands we're working with, is refining messages to apply to the current situation. So especially, thinking of from the franchise brands we work with perspective, a lot of them in their development side are looking to highlight how their business was or was not affected by this situation. And so an example would be, we work with some commercial cleaning franchise brands. And so commercial cleaning has actually had a surge in demand, because now people need more, cleaning for their buildings. One of our clients, they have this disinfecting service. So people need more, they need their building to be disinfected so people can come back into their building. So now from the franchise sales team perspective, they want to refine their message to highlight the fact that, hey, this happened, but we were an essential business, so we were needed more. So that's a good option, especially if you're having to put the pause on things. Number 3 is retain, upsell, cross-sell. So this might be the maintain group. We're looking at ways that we can, number 1, retain our clients, retain our revenue and business. Retaining a client might not mean in the short term retaining the same revenue though. So you might, to keep a client, sometimes you might have to give a discount because they're in a bind, and you need to, offer them maybe a temporary discount or something like that, or like reduce their service levels, whatever the case may be, just to keep them happy and keep them with you. Also, alternatively, you can, if you're in kind of a pause or a maintain mode, you can start looking at your accounts now and identify opportunities where you could, like for instance, the cleaning example I gave. So in that case, maybe it would be an opportunity, because their core business is now doing better. They're in demand, more in demand than before. Maybe it's an opportunity to come in and, upsell an additional service to that particular client, while some of your other clients may be not in that same situation. And then obviously number 4 is mostly the key of what we're talking about today, which is focusing on growth, acquisition, and opportunity. And there is a lot of shakeup right now. So this is just very basic analysis of the situation. There's a lot of businesses that are hurting right now, and it's complicated. It's a tricky time, but every time that something like this happens, it opens the door for a lot of other opportunities. So when there's a need for something, and whoever's supplying that essentially can't do it anymore, then somebody has to. So just keep that in mind as the general philosophy. So number 4 is my philosophy. That's where we are as our business, and that's where we are, where it's applicable, recommending as many businesses to try to figure out how can you fit in that model, because you never know, once again, how long this is going to last and what you're going to necessarily need to do to you don't know what in 3 months from now, things may be going well and you're maintaining your clients now, but in 3 months, what if they can't keep it up, right? And so then those clients go away in 3 months. What have you done in this last 3 months to make up for that? All right. So now, goals of outreach. And so this is pretty general, right? This is always when you're doing outreach, you're reaching out to business, you're reaching out to somebody who you think you can help, your business can help them, but they don't know you, and they didn't come to your website and fill out a form. They are here because you're talking to them because they fit your profile. So they fit your ideal client profile more than they didn't raise their hand, for instance. You got them, you contacted them. So the number one hands down, is to start the conversation. Like you're doing outreach, it's essentially networking. um, if you look at it this way, that your number one success metric is to start a conversation, no matter what that conversation is, then that's going to really drive everything else you do. So that's if so essentially, if your goal is to get a sale, to get a new client, then it's going to be much harder to do that than it is to focus on starting a conversation. And a conversation can be somebody saying, we're not a good fit for you right now. We're not interested right now. That conversation, if people just ignore you, if every outreach, if every cold call, you never get anybody on the phone, if every email that you send, outreach email, or every LinkedIn message that you send, no one ever responds, you don't have any data or information to make adjustments. So the number one goal is to start the conversation, because every no leads to a yes eventually, because you're going to figure out either one, your message is wrong, or your what you're saying to them is wrong, or number two, the person that you're targeting is wrong. And so one way or another, eventually you will figure it out if you're getting the conversations, either one way or the other. Once you've started the conversations, then these other things kind of fall in place. So number one, you're qualifying the need. So is this audience and is my solution lining up with a need? So is there a need in the audience that I think I'm targeting for my solution? You're gathering information. So outside of just finding that out, you could take different approaches, such as you're doing research, right? So you could do it's a strategic thing. So rather than even trying to set a sales call or do, a sales initiative to begin with, you could just say, hey, I'm doing research with marketing directors in the logistics industry, and so then you ask them a few questions, and you're going to get that information. That information can once again help you start the right sales conversations, or it could lead directly into sales conversations, because if you ask the right questions, it will pique their interest and they'll think, hey, maybe this person, since they're asking these questions, maybe they can help me because we do have a problem here. Number four is the obvious goal of getting sales. But it comes after you've started the conversation and figured out, are you talking to the right people? And then number five is, you can use outreach to build your authority or just grow connections. And building authority would be, maybe using outreach to reach out to people that you would be able to, maybe even an organization such as Innovate Mississippi. So like you think you could help, businesses that are working with Innovate Mississippi. So then you could reach out and say that, propose the ways that you could do so, and potentially work with them, which could then lead to larger, awareness or authority. So that was the basics, the basic logic of outreach. So the mindset shift, for now, is just as much as starting the conversation is the most important, number one focus of outreach in general. The number one mindset shift here is the number one most critical thing that people should be taking right now. This is an investment in your business. So your outreach is an investment. It's a long-term investment. It's for the next 12 months you're investing right now. If you strategically approach the correct people, then you will start these conversations and build these relationships over time. And as their business gets into the right position, you will be able to help them, and you will be the person that they've come to trust or come to know can do that over the period of time. But it's definitely a long-term investment. With point two is kind of what I was just saying. The people in the wait and see group, you know, however long they're going to be waiting to see, if you're there, if you've stayed in touch, whenever they come out of it, I do predict they're going to have to scramble more than anybody else, because the wait and see, like I said, I think the longer you wait, the more you risk losing clients and revenue for various reasons. Obviously it depends on how your contracts are structured and everything like that. But I would just say they're going to, when they come out, they're going to want to come out swinging, right? Because they've been sitting and waiting and seeing whatever they're going to see that says that now's the time. I do think a lot of them, and I've already seen that. I've already seen people I talked to in February who were saying, we're going to wait and see. Now they've come and they're like, we want to get started immediately. So I think there's certainly some of that to be seen. We work with a client that is an HR. This is a good example of this whole long-term strategy. So we work with a client that is an international PEO. So it's an HR company that helps businesses expand internationally and do it, be in compliance with all the local HR laws and taxes and stuff like that. So um, basically, we're having people who are giving. So we're starting the conversation. We're getting the feedback. And so, like just a couple days ago, somebody's like, "Our international expansion plans have been delayed for 12 months." Right. So now, we will be willing to discuss it in about 10 months from now. So essentially, at the face of it, you're like, if you're looking for closing the sale, then, maybe you're frustrated because what am I going to do in 10 months? But if you're looking at it with the long-term investment viewpoint, then now what do we know? This company already definitely has plans for international expansion, and they're willing to talk to us. And so now it's just a matter of following up appropriately. So it's like maybe we engage them with some information over the year. So not requesting another sales call, but hey, here's some things maybe you should know. I know you're planning this in the next year. And then now they grow the trust. And then so we get a few months down the road, and then we reach out and schedule the call. So um, that type of thing is happening a lot right now, but people are starting the conversation. They're giving the feedback. So it's just now a manner of managing the process. A big part of the mindset set is what I was just kind of talking about giving that information. Is you have to be here to help people right now. People are expecting, people are confused. They don't know what to do. They have so many, people are dealing with PPP loans. How am I going to get it? What's the process? How am I going to keep my staff on payroll? There's so many things that are going on outside of this, but at the same time, for every company with all those challenges happening, that's even more reason why business development is crucial, because, if these are the problems you're having, the way to solve it is more revenue. So like on the flip side, if you save, if your business saves businesses money, that would be like so that would be a reason for you to do business development, because you're here to help. We know you have all these challenges going on. We can help you save money in these ways, because definitely they need it. They need to figure out ways to renegotiate contracts or, cut costs on healthcare, things like that. Number 4, mindset shift. This one has been really important for us. So for Spark Outbound. And then we are talking with several of our other clients who are also doing some version of this. Not all of them. Some of them, they can't do it, or they just aren't willing to do it yet. But for us, this has been huge, and that's restructuring agreements. So like for us, we always had a retainer, right? For outreach, it was a monthly cost. So we figured out ways to adjust that. And so it has, it's been very popular. It's really accelerated our growth. And then we see so like there's the company is an advertising company, but so over the past couple of years, they've been shifting less less of or more away from traditional advertising like TV, radio, print, to more digital, and web design and stuff like that. And so what they've started doing is financing. So they started offering where they would say, for instance, charge 50% up front, 50% at completion. They started financing out across months, so maybe across a whole year. And it just made it monthly payments. And so they've been able with that to add a few more clients that they probably would have definitely said no otherwise, because they wouldn't be able to pay the lump sum to get the project done. And number 5 is you're just really looking at opportunity. It's just the basic component of there's opportunity out here. Are your competitors pausing or stopping? Are things that you did, if you make a small tweak to the way you deliver it, you can service a big market of people who need help in that area. Like looking for ways that you can fit in and capture that. So I briefly mentioned this before, but just generally types of outreach. So like, what are we talking about specifically? Is phone. So you're cold calling somebody and trying to, have a conversation, a business conversation with them. Email outreach. That's our primary method that we use, and then also social media outreach. Email and social media are very similar, but there are some slight differences that you will find with when we talk about. We're going to now start getting into kind of some of the real foundational, the meat of what we're doing. And there's a little bit of a difference between email and social media, because email has, when you're doing cold outreach, so people call it cold email outreach, a variety of different phrases are used to describe it. But when you're doing that, there's almost like things you have to do. All right. And when I say that, what I mean is to comply with like canned spam laws. So you have to have your signature set up a certain way. It has to have a physical email address, for instance. You have to have a way for somebody to unsubscribe, whether it's click a link to unsubscribe, or to, you just add at the end of your email, if you don't want to receive emails from us, just respond, stop or something. It can be a response, but there has to be a mechanism there. You need to, and so then when you get into some other, I don't know necessarily it's a law, but it would be a guiding principle for privacy and this process. But you need to be very direct with who you are, and why you're messaging someone. So there's things with email that have to be done. Social media, though, especially if you're messaging somebody on LinkedIn, you're connected to them and you're messaging them. You don't have to necessarily like go through this thing and introduce yourself. You're literally connected already. So it just changes a little bit. But what we'll talk about primarily is email. And then phone, phone is a little trickier, because phone is a lot about personality. It's a lot about, just being able to push through on the phone and get the person's attention. But with email, it's something that can be, scaled. You can use technology to scale it. And so that's going to be the primary focus here. So when we craft messages for our clients, we use this matrix here as the foundational points. Like each email has to have these points in there. Number 1 is personality. So we'll get into this specifically, but basically you want to seem like you just wrote this email to this one person. So it's critical. Number 2 is the who am I. So you really need to, the first time you're messaging somebody, you need to introduce yourself, and so they, and when I say that, more than just your name, you need to give the background of what the company you're contacting from, what your role is, and then getting into the benefit statement, what you could do, what do you do to help them? So what can you do to help them? The why, or the pain point, is then the problem. So uncovering common as far as how people would respond. So for the next few slides, we wanted to talk about those things and then give the examples. I think the examples are a key component to this, so you understand what I mean here, especially with this one. So personality and outreach. The response rate when you use this type of strategy in your email, I would say it's about anywhere between 25 to 40% higher if you start your email with something like this, or it's in your email. It doesn't have to be the start, but you use something like this. It brings somebody's guard down a bit whenever they see this, and they don't know if you just wrote them this email individually. It's like it gives them that second of pause to at least read it more and then respond. So we've ran campaigns where this is not there. So we just were very, direct and professional, I guess would be the best way to describe it. And then we ran campaigns where we implemented personality language, and it's exponential difference in response rate. It might be people saying they're not interested, but at least once again, that. And so now you can start to evaluate, why were you contacting these people that weren't interested? But the goal is to make the personal connection. And you could throw, this is where the creativity really comes in, because you could, instead of doing something like this, like just close the door or have a few minutes and wanted to realize I never sent you an email. This one is really common right now, the working from home and catching up on email. So I thought I would message you. So that one worked really good before everybody started working from home. It works less, it doesn't work. It's not as unique now to say that one, but that's where you could say something like, hey, just got off a company Zoom call and we were talking about, your type of business, insert your type of business. And I knew I needed to contact you. Like just anything like this, where it's like, you're just bringing something extra to the table. This one thing, I attribute it to a significantly higher open rate or response rate. Okay, so then benefit statements. So this is where you're in somebody's inbox who has no idea who you are. And so this comes from with the Facebook or with the LinkedIn or the email side of things. You want to be clear and concise. I'm going to talk about LinkedIn for a second. I can't tell you how many messages. I get a lot of messages on LinkedIn. Okay, I can't tell you how many times I open up the message and it's like 400 words long. Okay, I'm not reading that. And mostly no one else is either. So if you're going to do outreach on LinkedIn, you need to figure out a way to do it in like 3 sentences to start the conversation, right? Because that's the goal, start the conversation. I don't want to read 400 words about why you are, whatever it is that you do is so great and how, like I don't need the whole thing. Like just start the conversation. If I see the message, I can, guess what, on LinkedIn, I can go look at your profile, see if we're fit. Is it something that I could be interested in? And then respond, and we can have the conversation from there. So just keep that in mind. The other one note I'll make about LinkedIn is this. So I don't know how it looks on every device necessarily, so it could be a little bit different, but mostly when I receive messages on LinkedIn, what I see is somebody says, "Hi, Jonathan," comma, and then they double space, right? So they enter. So there's a blank line. So usually what I see on more than half of the messages I receive is "Hi, Jonathan," comma, and then nothing else. So if I'm busy, now I don't see the incentive to read that message. So keeping that in mind, and this, these kind of tricks are really important for getting the results that you want, getting the conversation started. Understand that formatting and say whatever lead with literally whatever you're saying, knowing that it's going to show up in the first 2 lines. And so if you can say what it is that you can help the person do immediately, then kind of fall back to like kind of maybe like the why you're contacting them or the benefit statement of your business or whatever. But you get their attention, they're going to be more likely to open the message and then start the conversation. So that's a side note on LinkedIn. But so using your benefit statements, if you see the examples, you want to be brief. It needs to be relevant to who they are. So you want to indicate that at some level. Like the first example there, I help consulting focused businesses expand reach by connecting your team with key decision makers in your target market. Or one of our logistics clients, we help businesses save time and money. So that's their benefit statement. They use it all throughout their corporate marketing. We help businesses save time and money, and then the specifics are by leveraging our company's global spend, because they're a DHL partner. So and you want it to be unique. You want to try to make it as unique as possible. So like the second example is because they have a global relationship, and so that's how they can get a lower cost. Ours, I would say the most unique part of it is the consulting focused, right? So if we're reaching out to a group of consulting business owners, then it would be unique to their need. So anyway, so you want to try to focus as getting it out in as few words as possible, but making it as relevant and unique to them as possible. And just a quick pause. Anybody who does have any questions about anything, just definitely feel free to chat them. And I am kind of looking at that just in case anybody posts anything. I'll be happy to stop and address it if possible. Okay, so the why, the pain point, this is where, it depends on your approach. If you're doing outreach to a lot of people, and so you build a list and you're messaging, 100 or 1,000 or whatever people, like a large number of people, you have to try to be really specific on your list building to make it a very specific audience. If you are doing one-off outreach, then I would highly suggest that you try to fit the why as specifically to that business as possible. And a good example would be this. We have a client that they build mezzanine and rack systems in warehouses. And so what that means, a mezzanine is like a second floor of a warehouse. And it gives them like a whole nother floor's worth of capacity. And so they uncovered that these two companies were merging. And so the VP of operations for the company, it was merging together. He says that their number one priority, he did a press release, and in the press release, he said their number one priority for Q2, 3, 4 of this year is essentially like shoring up their logistics operations. And so he gave some examples, and it was kind of like, he was indicating they were looking at, can they consolidate and maximize their facilities, right? So then now our client, we came together, we strategized on a way to do it. So now he's reaching out to these people through their operations chains of those two companies to try to present this literally, that he knows that's so literally the pain point is literally, I know that this person at your company said this is a priority for your organization. So that's where it's super specific. So they know that you didn't just get a list and you're just messaging them. You've done research on their company. You understand what their challenges are. And so it's not always that, you have that, that specific of a point, but the more specific you can be. So if you maybe go look at their social media or look on their website, see events or webinars they've been involved with or things like this, see what they're putting out as their messaging, then maybe you can figure that out. Also, if you help businesses, I'll go back to the saving money option. and they have had to lay off employees, then maybe that's a lead in. So I know you have recently had to lay off employees, and because of that, there's this thing that I can do to help you cut your costs, and maybe you can bring back more employees, or whatever the angle is. But the more specific you can be with the why, the more likely you're going to catch their attention that you really are you've taken the time out to address their specific need, and it's not generic. It's legitimate. You think you can help them for this reason, and so it's more likely to start the conversation, which can then lead to furthering through the process. So in this example, if you're working with production teams or inventory management personnel, is the why in this example is like you're working with this team, and they can help. And and then the other one is I'm reaching out to you because we've worked with many organizations in the business services industry, right? So the alternative to that would be we've worked with ABC company in the business services industry, and understand that they had this problem and we helped them with it. That's a really good example too, because especially for corporations, if you're saying we work with another corporation that was similar to you, and we did this specific result for them, that's a big win. All right, so this is really quick. So the formula for putting this together, this is how we typically do it, is we use the personality statement, who are we, so the introduction, the benefit statement, then the pain point or why that we're here to solve, and then a call to action. So it would be, I've been working late tonight, so I'm sending an email before I have a bunch of meetings tomorrow. I'm Jonathan from Spark Outbound. We help consulting firms generate more leads. We recently worked with ABC company, and they added 10,000 a month revenue for an annual contract through our program. And if you'd like to talk about how we could do this for you, schedule a call on my calendar, or give me some times on Tuesday that would work for you, something like that. So that's our standard. Okay, so then this is the adjustments for this time period, for now. So adding in primarily this one thing, which is empathy. Okay, you understand that potentially, at least, they could be having a challenging time right now, because you don't know 100% for sure always. So you want to have empathy. You also might want to change some of the harder, more specific sales angles, trying to just get the meeting, to maybe changing to a different call to action where you're here to help. So that would be like we recently produced, so like we recently did this research, and we have this information that could be beneficial to you. Can I send it over? Okay, versus can we just get on a call and talk about how we could work with you? And in general, this is a philosophical thing, but also you could use it in your copy. So this is philosophical from you doing outreach, is you have to look at this now as you don't want anything in return. So you have to get in your mindset that if somebody says no, or if you do talk to them even, and it's just a no, it just can't work, you just have to mentally somehow like wrap and this is maybe all the time, maybe this would be a better mentality for salespeople, business development people to have, is just not wanting anything in return. And so, where we are typically inputting the empathy is either after the personality statement, or kind of attached to the personality statement, or even at the end. So even after the why, before the call to action. So there's a few different ways you can put it in, but it's just simply something like this. Like, I understand the situation is uncertain and challenging for many businesses. That's it. We've been able to, help some of our clients in this way. We've helped our clients save money. We've helped our clients get more clients. Whatever that is that you're doing. And then, even things like this, and this can it can seem, especially when you're sending so many messages, it can seem repetitive, but just saying simple things like stay safe, just acknowledging it. So it's not like you're just full speed ahead with everything. It's you understand that we're in a different place. I realize things have changed quite a bit. This is one of our, so this is the logistics company. This is very similar to what they're using. So they're saying, I realize things have changed quite a bit. I wanted to reach out to you in the face of this global health crisis. That was specifically chosen by them to say that. I wouldn't necessarily, go that direct with it, but that was what they wanted to go with, and let you know that we are fully operational, right? So we, it's just basically letting people know, like, we can help you if, for instance, your other company had to put things on pause for whatever reason. All right. So when you're doing outreach, it's always key to send more than one message. So if you're contacting people in the U.S., which most all of us will be, you definitely want to be sending follow-up messages, and just make sure that you always give them the directions or the opportunity to opt out. But at the end of the day, most responses come from emails 2 through 6. So from an email only perspective, when you mix in other channels into this campaign, it could be a little different, but most responses come from 2 to 6. There's a percentage of people who respond to email 1. They're just on it. That's their thing. They respond to emails quickly. But most people come back with 2 through 6. And so with each message, it is never ever to send the same message 6 times. Each message should be very different, right? So the first message is what we went through. The second message could be one sentence. Hi, I know you're probably busy right now. Did you have any thoughts on my previous message? Okay, so that could be the second message. The third message could be something like, hey, I haven't heard back from you yet. Were you the right person to discuss this? You don't have to keep restating your case, especially if you send in the same subject. So like you reply. So you're sending a reply to your initial message, because they'll have the initial message already. And you don't want to just keep bombarding with sales. You want to just keep it moving. It seems like you're just doing your follow-ups, and if you're doing it manually, you are just doing your follow-ups. But emails 2 through 6 is also another spot where creativity can play a huge factor in your results. Some people like to do, and you can find resources online for this, some people like to do a lot of joke type messages. So they try to use a lot of humor in their messages, and it works. Sometimes it works. It just depends on who your audience is, but they will get some good responses when like people do these lists too. Like we do them sometimes, but you'll send a message and you'll be like, here's I haven't heard from you. Here's 4 bullet points, 1, 2, 3, 4. And number 1, and it'll be like, just tell me which one of these is accurate for you. So it'll be like, number 1 is, I'm not interested. Number 2 is, I'm too busy right now. Number 3 is, let's schedule the call. Number 4 is, I'm a superhero and I was busy getting my cape, altered, or something like that. And so just throwing that in there sometimes can catch people off guard. They'll take a step back, look at it, and say, okay, like, yes, I have been ignoring you, but now let's have a call. Or they'll just say they're not interested, and you can, you have that information and you can move forward. And so number 4, I mentioned the referral angle, but the referral meaning for the correct person at the company to talk to. And then number 5 is just critical test. Like we have launched in this year, so in 2020, we've probably sent, I don't know, like 300,000 emails like this. And we have probably sent about 75 ish, maybe 60 to 75 different email structures. So it never ends. The more you can test, the better. But that I will say this: if you're sending emails individually, it's harder to test because you don't have a big enough data pool. So you're only sending one-offs. Um, you need to really be sending at least 100 emails, and that's small. Like really, it would be like 1,000 emails of one email to understand if you need to make a difference, right? Because you could randomly send one email to 25 people and get 10 responses, and you could think this email copy is amazing, but it could have just been random. It could have just been like going to the casino and you just hit the jackpot. But once you send it to at least 100 or ideally 1,000 people, then you can start to really see. You'll start to see that the numbers become consistent. The open rate will stay consistent. The click-through rates or the response rates will stay consistent. And so that's what we see over the course of sending like this 300,000 roughly emails. We get pretty consistent open rates, response rates, positive response rates across the spectrum. And it's just, you'll see a bump, right? You'll see a bump of maybe 0.2%, or a 1% bump in positive responses with like going from a bad copy to a really good copy. You'll see like 1% bump, 2% bump. But when you're doing like what we're doing and you're contacting 1,000 people a month, a 1% bump is 10 more people. So 10 more sales calls in the month. A 2% bump would be 20 more sales calls in a month. So it is significant when you're looking at it over time like that. So over the course of a year, 1% bump would be 120 more sales calls. So just keep that in mind. It's a numbers game to a degree, but also you can get really good results if you're just doing one-offs, if you're very specific. So that would be the trade-off. If you're going to do one-offs and you're not going to be specific, you would be better off just maybe figuring out a way to automate that with software and not spending so much time doing those one-offs. But if you do have access to information that would allow you to be really specific with that why, then you should take that time to personalize those messages, and you could get it's the trade-off is time. It's going to be a lot of time to personalize the messages and send them. So all right, so this is like a roadmap of, if you see where the emails are, so like the first thing says introduction email, then the day 3 says follow-up email, day 4 referral email, whatever. So that would be a roadmap of a typical email campaign for us. And mixed into here would be ways you could, especially if you set this up with automation, you could set up the email campaign to run as it sits here. So day 1, day 3, day 4, and that could be different, test it. Day 14, day 15, day 17, day 27. So something like that. You could set that up to run, and then you could be manually doing these tasks in between. So you could follow the person on LinkedIn after, on day 1 or on day 2 or whatever. You could make a call, day 1 or 2. And so you just would work your way through this type of a campaign. If you're doing something like this, the conversations, so as far as just the general response rate, combining all of these different touches is going to be very high. Once again, though, it's great if you're in sales. So if your role is sales and that's what you do all day, every day, you don't necessarily have to do account management, but you're just trying to get people into presentation phase or proposal phase, then doing something like this will significantly improve your your activity, your activity as far as getting people into those presentation and proposal phases. All right, and this is kind of the final slide here of the information. And so other ways in general, so just brainstorming, so now there's the concept of outreach, there's the concept of how you build campaigns, how you're structuring a message to get your point across. And so then you could take that and maybe achieve different objectives for your company with the same strategy. So not just basically doing sales, but you could book publicity. So a great example would be, back to the cleaning companies. So some of our cleaning companies had done some really awesome projects for other businesses that by them kind of, getting together, partnering up, they were able to help that business stay open because they're able to keep it cleaner, and they had these great stories about that. Like these brands were franchisees, so they would go to the franchisees and say, what's going on right now, what's happening out there. And so these franchisees were giving them back all these stories. So you as a company can now roll that into like a package. And so you can do PR outreach in the same way and say, hey, we've done this thing. Our business has done this and it's made a difference in some way. Do you want to share the story? And so we can either schedule interviews with you with these people or whatever that may be. Number two, super popular right now, and I know like Maris West Baker is doing podcasts there, right down below Innovate Mississippi's offices. They have the podcast studio, but I know podcasts are huge right now. You can use this same strategy to book your podcast or webinar or surveys, polls, etc. You can create content by collaborating with other people who are either in your industry, who are clients type, people that would be clients, or people that will be supporting. They would be a support piece where you fit into your industry. And so you can create a lot of great content, which then has benefits for your marketing for a variety of reasons. We touched on this at the very beginning, you can book speaking engagements, you can, figure out ways you can contribute, collaborate with other organizations. And then number four is if you're focused on SEO and trying to rank, you can use this same type of strategy combined with other strategies, which, would be a whole different webinar, but to get backlinks. So you can reach out to people who run websites or own websites and try to get them to link back to your site because you think your content would help, be a valuable link to their content. So that's really it. So I was talking to Janet about, ways we could potentially help, the ecosystem there and other businesses. And so we came up with something. I just want to really quick run through this. This is just like a special offer that we offered for Janet and Tony, Tasha, for letting us, take part in this. And so at the very beginning, I touched on how we changed our pricing model from retainer. So what we changed it to was a performance-based structure, meaning we charge a percent. So if we generate a lead, that lead becomes a client, then we charge a percentage of that client. So it's sort of like a business, paying a commission business development person or something like that is essentially like the easiest way to look at it. And so what we were doing was just charging like a setup fee. So because there's a lot of setup and cost that goes into building our campaign. So we talked with Janet and we came up with this idea to just like slash that setup fee down from $1,000 one time to $250 one time. And so, I would be definitely more than happy to speak with anybody who would be interested in that. It's just a way potentially we could essentially supplement your outreach efforts. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to put into the chat. It's going to take me just a second here. but I'm going to put into the chat my calendar link. And so anybody who wants to talk about that, like I said, more than happy, even beyond that. So even if it's not, you just want to talk about that, but you just want to offline talk about something else, or, run some ideas, I'm happy to, to take some time to do that. So I just posted that into the chat link. Anybody that wants to grab some time with me can definitely do that. And then also, in addition, Janet, we talked about this, and so what I want to do now is open up to like a full-fledged, like in-depth Q&A session. So I agreed with Janet to book off the next hour. So I know we just rolled past 12 Central. So I'm actually, blocked off my calendar until 1 Central. So any questions, comments, back and forth that anybody wants to, to talk about, like I say, I'm here. So let's do it, and we can run through real examples, whatever the case may be. And so otherwise, I'll hand it back over to Janet now, and then anybody who has questions, just definitely, put them in the chat, or I'm not sure if there's another method, but I think the chat's probably the best method.
Hey, Jonathan, and to everybody, there's also a Q&A function. You'll see, you can put it in there as well. But I had one question from the Q&A that I'll go ahead and start this off. Hey, everybody, you can also raise your hand. There's a little hand symbol, and we can call on you and unmute you, and you can pose questions to the entire group as well. So whatever you feel comfortable doing. Jonathan, question came in. With regard to email outreach, what are some creative strategies that you've seen or used for building email subscriber volume?
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, that's a good question. So as far as creative, when I hear creative, I'm going to assume meaning also lower budget. And so I would say this, there's a manual way. So it's always a trade-off, right? It's either going to be time or money, one way or the other. So from a time perspective, you can, let me think about what the best way I want to go. So there's the most basic method, and that would be to identify your targets. So like, who are your target businesses that you want to go to? Go to their so create a spreadsheet, go to their websites, and the starting point for free would be to try to see if they how many of those websites have a personal email address listed. So maybe they have a company page, and then the company page has people's information listed there. The other thing, so the next step would be, it does have a small cost, but it would be maybe something, I think it would be something around maybe $20-$30 a month, but I do know you can use it one time, and so you don't have to like sign a year contract or something like that. But I'm gonna share this. Let me just. So this is it's a little trickier because it requires you to you have to there's a little bit of a learning curve with this, but this would be the cheapest way just to pull information creatively. So to answer your question, but I'm gonna chat this in the chat window, and I see these other questions coming in the chat, so I'll definitely get to those. So Phantom Buster, it's a data extraction tool. And so a lot of people might call it a hacking tool. And so what this does is you can put a list of websites in, or you can run a search in LinkedIn. And then what it's going to do is it's going to scrape the data, and then it's going to output data to you. Okay, so it's not 100%, nothing like this will be 100%, and then there's going to be some issues with the data accuracy, but at least it can give you a starting point. Alternatively, like if you just get somebody's name and you get and you know their company domain, web address, then you could manually just test it. So there's tools out there, like you can Google tools for like find an email address, and there are some tools, I don't have them as an example right now, but there are some tools that are free or very cheap where you can test emails, and the tool will essentially ping that address. So it'll send like a cookie to that address, and then it'll send back and say this is either valid or invalid. So there's those, I would say, are the cheapest methods. It would be like literally manually looking at websites, using a tool like I just described where you're essentially guessing email addresses, or 3, using a tool like Phantom Buster, and then scraping data. So you're going to get more volume more quickly, but you would then you would have to find ways to verify it. The next step up, and so this would be maybe something like, there's options between like $50 to $100 a month, would be using a tool like this. And so this one also works great if you have LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and it's called Wizza.co. And so what will happen is you go run an advanced search in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and it will extract all the business emails. So it will extract the data from the search and then try to find business emails from that search information. And so what we've seen, we've been testing it a little bit. What we've seen so far is it probably gets between 40 to 70% of the people in the search. It gives you an email address, and it also validates the email address. So it will tell you when it finishes, it'll say these are valid email addresses, meaning these are like, essentially guaranteed to be legit emails. Then it'll say these are risky, and then it'll say these are not found. So that's a pretty cool tool. It's not that expensive. And then other tools, there's a lot of tools like Wizza, one way or the other. But Wizza so far is the one, after testing probably 20 of them, Wizza seems to be the one we like the best that does that. In general, though, we are a Zoom Info Discover org partner, which that is not a creative or cheap way. But they do have a lot of technology which allows us to use creative data strategies to find very specific people. But it's just the cost is, it's not a cheap cost. But Zoom Info or Discover org, they merge. So I'm not sure which one you would go to if you just wanted to engage them. All right, cool. Let me look at these other questions. And I hope that answered the question. If you have any follow-up, please feel free to ask. Okay, just want to clarify, does your firm create email campaigns? Yeah, okay, so this is an important point. The next part of the question was, do you recommend using one company over others? So, and so the examples given were MailChimp, SendGrid, Constant Contact. So I would recommend something completely different if you're going to do email outreach, because what those companies are marketing email platforms. And so they're designed to send emails to your opted-in marketing list. Okay. So there's 2 reasons why that's tricky, because one, you're not going to, these people you're going to be contacting are not going to be opted in. And so this is a sales effort. So number one, you could potentially run into issues like uploading a list to those companies, and then a bunch of people like mark you spam or something because, for a variety of reasons, then they would essentially lock down your account, because that's not what it's for. Those companies are for people that know you and you're sending them things that they signed up to receive. So when you send email outreach, it's different because you're doing a sales initiative. You're sending one email to one person. So I'm Jonathan sending an email to Janet. Okay. It's not sending an email to the list. So I'm going to put another one in here. And so this is what We have our own platform, but we used to use this, and this is, as far as I'm concerned, this is one of the best. But what you would want to be looking for is something like this or this. Okay, so these platforms are it's just a different technology. The way the emails are sent, they're not sent as a batch. So if you go on what was the example you, so MailChimp. So if you go on MailChimp and you upload a list and you're like, I'm going to send an email at 2 p.m. today, it would send that as one list. So it would just blast that out. Boom, it's gone. And it may batch it in like 15 at a time or something like that, but it's essentially sending at one time. If you send with Outreach or the other one that I just shared, Mailshake. So it's going to send one email and then it's going to wait like 2 or 3 minutes and then it's going to send another email. And so it's automating the process, like I said, of one-to-one sending. So it's a different process. It's a different tactic, but it is very important because if you went and took the time to build a list of 2,000-3,000 people and then you upload it to Mailshake, you would run the chance of having just wasted a bunch of time. And then also now you've already emailed those people and they, you essentially kind of burn that chance. Also, the way you would send follow-up emails on MailChimp, SendGrid, or Constant Contact would be a completely different process. You would have to build all these campaigns. You maybe have to build automations, whereas the way you build the campaigns in those two that I just shared is called a sequence typically. And so you're saying email 1, wait 4 days, email 2. It may not sound like that much of a difference, but these differences are very important, especially the waiting between individual emails. It's very important in getting these emails in the inbox. Okay, so Mark says, can we go back to the email campaign 27 days schedule? Yes. Okay. All right, Mark. And I do think, Janet, we're going to send the presentation because I think Carrie here is asking if we can send the, okay, so link to recording. So I do believe, Janet, we're going to send a link to the recording or it will be available on the website.
Hey, I've got everyone's emails. I'm happy to send that to the group, but also we'll have it available on our website. So if you just go to innovate.ms on the homepage, if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see some banner ads. And I will add the link to the recording right there. So I'll do that pretty quickly after this is over.
Okay, perfect. Does anyone have any other questions or anything specific to their business? Copy, strategy for targeting, follow-up questions on what I was talking about building lists. I'll just give just a couple more minutes here. We got plenty of time if anybody needs it. See, we still got a few people hanging on here. Okay, Darren's got a question. Okay. Okay, no problem, Darren.
Darren, if you want me to unmute you, I can do that, or you can raise your hand. If you'd rather pose it to the group.
You're welcome, Mark. Glad you enjoyed it. Okay, I see a hand raise.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Darren raised his hand, so that means I have to unmute you. There we go.
Okay, there you go.
Darren, you're good. Wait. Nope, he's still muted. There we
There
go.
we go.
Okay, now, well, it keeps going back. There we go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Oh, good afternoon. I'm sorry. In the car, and this is my first time zooming from my phone, and I'm driving to get to my laptop. From the small part of what I was able to gather from the presentation, awesome, and thank you for taking the time to do this and innovate. Providing this opportunity. And so, if this was something that you answered in the earlier part of the presentation, I do apologize. But as a new entrepreneur and learning to market from you books or
Darren, I think you cut out. The last thing I heard was as a new entrepreneur.
okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. What advice or what books or podcasts do you recommend that new entrepreneurs, marketers read to become more successful?
Interesting. Okay, yeah. So I would say there's a book called. Let me see who writes this book. So the one thing I really like this book. It's called Hard Thing About Hard Things. Um, that's the title of it. The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz, and it's building a business when there are no easy answers. And so it's basically the author talks about his experience, like going from early in his career to the end of his career, towards the later part of his career, and he had a lot of just as everybody, he has a lot of crazy things that came up, and then he describes what happened and then what he did, and then how he feels that his decision affected everything. So it like puts you in the logic of in the mindset of like thinking of this logic, about how can I make decisions that are going to keep pushing me to the direction that I want to go. I would say that's one of my favorite books. I also read, like what I do is digital marketing. So I read a lot of blogs. So I don't have maybe necessarily too many podcasts that I have been listening to on this. I do listen to Gary V, whenever he does stuff. I think, people either love him or hate him, Gary Vaynerchuk. But, I do, occasionally listen to some of the topics that he talks about. He talks a lot about, that what you're talking about, like you're a new entrepreneur, like the journey, the path, the mindset that it takes to get to success. But I read a lot of blogs, honestly, that are specific to what I do. So I read a lot of blogs on lead generation, on marketing, sales, and then because I also do a lot with Google Ads and have for years. So I read a lot of from Google, from the source kind of things, and then also from things like one person that I think he's really big on marketing, and specifically his claim to fame is originally SEO, so helping websites rank on Google. But Neil Patel, he puts out tons of content. And so a lot of it is about SEO, but you can find also, you can kind of dig through his YouTube channel and find a lot about just entrepreneurship and things like that. He has kind of started, he kind of started from the bottom, and now he's got a huge, huge company and multiple companies and all this kind of stuff. He's a serial entrepreneur. So I would say from that full-on entrepreneur mindset, I would say Neil Patel and Gary Vee are the two people that I look at the most. And then the book I like the most is this, The Hard Thing About Hard Things. Yeah, so I hope that answers.
Hey, Jonathan, I got another. I don't know if you're looking at the Q&A, but you want me to just call out? There's another question.
Yeah, I see it here. So from Kristen.
Okay. You want to read it to the group?
Yeah, so we're trying to build a media distribution list that includes some strategic business editors, national media contacts. Is there a useful resource that has this information in collective format already? News release distribution list. It's tricky because I know there are lists. As far as being able to just tell you, where that might be, just like how you can easily access it. I used to work at a PR firm, and so I'm sure you might know this, and this might be basic, but there's a company called Cision, right? And so Cision is that database. So I don't know. I know it can be pricey, but I don't know if there's a way that you can fulfill your need without signing some type of long-term agreement with them. But it's CISION, Cision. And so that's literally what they are. They're a service provider to connect people to media contacts. I don't, off the top of my hand, have that particular list available. We have in our data partner, like our data partners, ZoomInfo and stuff, they have that. But once again, that would be a cost. There would be a cost involved. I do know also to ZoomInfo does require an annual subscription always. There's no way around it. So unfortunately, I don't have just a clear-cut answer on that. That's to be honest, that's a super valuable list. So if you can build it manually, maybe a way to do that. So and I'm just brainstorming this, but to use Phantom Buster that I linked in the comments earlier. And then it can do things like scrape Twitter, for instance. So, a lot of media personalities have a Twitter. So if you could figure out maybe hashtags, or you could build a list of what the publications are, and it would be a little complicated, but once again, it's not that expensive to do this with Phantom Buster, but you could set parameters to upload a list. Just trying to think through this. So maybe a better example to explain would be using it on LinkedIn. So you would set a list of all the companies that you're targeting on LinkedIn, and then you would turn around and scrape those companies and then find the employees that match those companies and then scrape that list. So it might be a little convoluted, but I'm sure there's a way using Phantom Buster or something similar to that. You could Google like Phantom Buster alternatives to find other examples, but there's ways to get creative with scraping data. The challenge comes then after you scrape the data and like verifying that it's legit data. So, but yeah, it's a good specific question. The answer is, I think the easiest way to get that is going to be to pay for it from one of those sources. The harder way would take some creativity on putting, either manually doing what I've described on Twitter, like manually searching out everybody who mentions, your list of publications on Twitter in their bio or something like that. Yeah, so I know that it's probably not the easy answer you were looking for, but it would be, once you build that list, like you have something that's worth, depending on how many people, I would say that would be worth, $3-4 per person on that list to have that list.
Are there any other questions for those of you still on? You can raise your hand, throw it up on chat, throw it on Q&A.
How's the weather there today?
It's kind of overcast, kind of dark and cloudy. It rained all night, so.
Yeah, I know you guys have been just having so many storms coming through there lately.
We
I was planning on being in Mississippi like over the last couple of weeks, but obviously it got canceled, and so I think we're going to be there most of the month of June is our plan now.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to be face to face again, and we can get together.
Yeah.
And I guess that's all the questions that we have from the group. So, hey, everyone's still on. Just stay tuned. We've got another webinar coming up in 2 weeks. It will be at 10 a.m. instead of 11, but we'll be featuring Dr. Nashley Cephas. She's going to talk about hiring tech talent, how to go about that for your company. So just stay tuned, and we'll plan on continuing this series every 2 weeks. And if you have any ideas for topics you would like to hear about, please reach out, email me, or send me a quick chat. Again, you can reach me at jparker@innovate.ms. You know how to reach Jonathan if he can help you in any way. And at this point, I'll go ahead and conclude the call.